that I really liked, and you didn't really expand on. I do want to expand on it this week. And we're going to talk in this episode about a couple of things. One of them being the puck bat handle. Do you know what I'm talking about? We'll talk about
Mm-hmm.
that later in the episode. You do? Okay. I'm sure you do.
Yep.
Of course you do. Do this for a living, for God's sakes. I'm asking.
I
It's like
should
asking
know. I
you.
mean,
It's
part
like
of
asking
being a
Elon
good
Musk, hey,
hitting
you know about
coach is,
Tesla?
yeah, knowing what's going on in the world.
Right. Yeah. Last week, though, you talked about Bruce Bochy. Maybe it was the week before. I don't remember. But you talked about Bruce Bochy coming into your house. And by the way, for those who don't know, start at the beginning. Jake's father, Mike, has a hitting certificate from Ted Williams and knows Ted Williams or knew Ted Williams personally. Jake does as well. For those who don't know, Ted Williams was the last guy to hit 400 at the major league level. Jake
Mm-hmm.
also has a whole, we'll call it phone contact book of old friends from the time he was a kid wandering around major league clubhouses of players that his father played with and players that he played with growing up in college, in the pros, in the professional ranks, who are now, by the way, on major league coaching staff. So
I
my
know I'm
point
old.
is later on, no. Well, no, my point though
They used to
is,
be
okay, you
players. Now
said
they're
it, not me.
coaches.
I didn't listen. You said you're old. For the record, I didn't say you're old.
Mhm.
We're going to do like a topic where, not really a topic, but we're going to do an episode later on in the year or whatever that's centered around just stories that you have of these players. Because I think there's some really good stuff in there. One of those people, though, being Bruce Bochy, who was a personal kind of a coach to you. And by the way, for those who don't know, I love listening off all these people that you know, by the way, and that you have relationships with. So take that, hitting Twitter, internet hitting coaches. Take that, fucking surfboard, fucking 102 or whatever your brand is out there. You don't know Ted Williams, nor do you know Bruce Bochy. None of you know Bruce Bochy. I don't know him either personally, but Jake does. You know that Bruce Bochy, the manager of the Texas Rangers, World Series winning manager of the San Francisco Giants. You mentioned last week, though, he used to come to your house and you guys used to discuss baseball. You guys used to discuss and talk about the mental side of things. Let's expand on that a little bit. Do you have any other stories just related to Bruce Bochy, how he helped your career and what you used to talk about in trying to get you better in the offseason?
Well, he was, it was when I was growing up in San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
and so I played. Greg, his oldest son, was I think he was a year or two behind me in high school, but we would go. My dad was doing work with the Padres at the time, so essentially we would go hit in the winter, and my dad would go down to the Jack Murphy Stadium and to the indoor tunnel that they had there, and so my dad would kind of work with me and Greg, and then Bruce would take me aside and just kind of he would do catching drills with me because I was really tall. I was a good catcher in high school, and he was a big catcher, obviously major league catcher, and so we would work through all different situations. So it was pretty cool to have that kind of hands-on stuff and just people my dad came, old friends of his that would come into town and we'd have dinner. I think that's what we were talking about. Jeff Torborg was the other one who
Right.
was a big league
Yeah.
manager. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I remember exactly the drills he was having me do with my hands, so that there was no tension in my hands when I was catching. And I still teach the stuff that Bochy, when I have players that I coach and that I'm trying to help as catchers, the stuff that he taught me, safety stuff is, plays at the plate kind of stuff, when where to stand, how to take it away, how not to, make sure your knees in the wrong angled position when somebody's sliding in. So things like that you take for granted. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. I was very fortunate as a kid because, my dad he played in the big leagues for 9 years. And
Mm-hmm.
so there were always people coming into town. And I have a picture in my office, of me and Ted Williams. I have a picture of myself and Joe DiMaggio. I have a picture of, behind me of that's Pete Rose that you see behind me. So
Over your shoulder to your right.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it was really, I'd go to spring training and I get to meet all these people, and I was young and I didn't know a whole lot about it. But later in life, they actually renamed the road near my high school Ted Williams Parkway in San
Very cool.
Diego. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was older at this point when he came out and they dedicated it to him. And so he came and he talked to, all my teammates and all my buddies, and he stayed at our house. And that kind of stuff is really, really cool. And I was I was still young. I was a teenager, but my dad was able to absorb that information. Probably the best, I guess, story. I don't know if it's a story, but just my dad would go. He wasn't in baseball at this time. This was in the probably the late '80s, mid '80s. He would go to Florida every year because one of his clients was there in Melbourne. And he would go stay with Ted, at his house, and they would just talk hitting. But not only would they talk hitting, they would watch games together. And my dad said he learned more, and this was 10 years after my dad retired, 15 years after he retired. He said he learned more watching a 9 inning game next to Ted Williams than he really learned playing the game the entire time, because Williams talked through every scenario,
Mhm.
every situation, what the pitcher was trying to do, what the hitter needed to do to counteract that. Where was the defense playing? Okay, well, that's tipping you as a hitter. They're trying to throw you away, or they're trying to throw you in, so you hit it into the shift, and all these things. And my dad said 1 9 inning game, he learned an encyclopedia's worth of information. And when you have good coaches, and I know that's our topic today, it's more about hitting coaches, but when you have good managers, that's why Boch is so great. There's so many steps ahead